All right, you guys ready to roll? Just from my end of things, not much left to be said about last weekend. I think, our team has really come back Sunday. I appreciate their mental mindset in terms of where we need to go and what we need to continue to do. Look forward to getting back on the practice field. I do think we've got a great challenge ahead of us. First road game of the season. A really talented young football team in a lot of ways. One of the most talented quarterbacks that I feel like we've seen so far. Dynamic playmaker, and then on the defensive side, really opportunistic, athletic, a lot of young guys that play really hard. So a lot of respect for the opponent that we play this weekend. And with that said, Randy, I'll turn it to you.
Matt, given that your team improves every week, which it has, how does the defense live up to that? How does the defense improve every week? It's from what it's playing now.
Well, I think their challenges only continue to rise, in my opinion. What you're going to see this week, an elite talent at quarterback. You've got a couple of elite playmakers at the receiver position. And so, you get different challenges each week. And, I would just say in general, the rhythm of the football game we've yet to capture as a team. And I think that's probably the most disappointing part of where we've started the season off. And even though we've had great moments of defensive football, and a lot of it so far in 8 quarters, man, some of the moments we've missed. And, whether it's, the big turnover, the big stop on 3rd and long. And so I think there's still areas that, if you would ask Coach Haycock and you'd ask our defensive players, there's areas they have to be better and we have to be better. And, when you're talking about it, our key for success is playing in rhythm as a football team, then, everybody's got to look internally and say, how do we swing the tide and the rhythm into the favor of what's allowed us to play successful football here? And that's really where I feel like we've missed the boat. So I think all of us on high alert in terms of a sense of urgency of finding that rhythm right now as a football team.
Offensively, when you guys are going through and trying to see where you can make improvement, what are you looking for on film? What are you seeing? And then how does that translate into getting things pointed in the direction you want them to?
Well, I would say, just like I felt like after week 1, I don't think you're really far off. I mean, you're talking about inches rather than miles in terms of where we are offensively. And, again, it's the same word. It's a lack of rhythm. You have great chunk plays. You have great individual efforts. You have 10 guys doing the right thing, and then you have a turnover here or a miscatch there that leads to a turnover or a fumble there, and you can't catch rhythm. And so I think globally, even on that side of the football, it's, what are you doing well? There are still a lot of really good things that are happening, and then how do we put it all together? How do we find that consistency that we're lacking? And so I think from that end of it, it really, when you're searching for that, it still goes back to the fundamentals and detail of our sport. And that's where I would still say, when you look at the first 2 games, that's where we're a hair off right now.
How have you seen Brock respond from Saturday?
Yeah, I think he's been awesome. Brock's been, was incredible in terms of just even how he handled himself Saturday to, that's gut-wrenching when it doesn't go your way. And, some of the things that happen in the game really aren't on you as the quarterback, but everybody's perception is that it is. So the reality of it is it's tough to play that position, but he's played it for 4 years. I think he knows how to handle tough times, and I think that's what made him so successful. So I'm really proud of what he's done and what he's stood for so far.
You said you wanted to evaluate that film and his play on Saturday. I'm curious what stood out.
Yeah, I thought really good decision making. I think he'd probably like to have one throw back in terms of, the ball kind of slips out of his hand on the big post and, but yet still gives the guy a chance to make a play, and we don't make the play. Other than that, I think when you look at his decision making during the football game, he's right where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And so, I just think a lack of the consistency around him, really led to, a subpar offensive performance globally by all 11 players. So, other than that, I think from Brock's standpoint, he'll only continue to improve as the other 10 players around him continue to have consistency as well.
You talked about that offensive rhythm. I'm curious, what does that look like for Brock specifically?
Have you watched us play the last 3 years? You know,
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
like when he's at his best, just in your opinion. But
yeah, he's been outstanding. You know, I think when you look at him play, it's man, you're spreading the ball around. The playmakers are making really good plays, you know, and the guys are making the plays that they need to make. And so I think Brock is a product. When you're the quarterback, you're certainly a product of what the other 10 guys do, right? And when you look at Brock in the first 2 games, I don't think you don't see the ball going where it's supposed to be. I don't think you don't see, you know, him mishandling the football. I don't think any of those things are happening, but I do think you see that with some of the other players that are around him. So, you know, again, I think when you see him playing really well, the ball's being spread where it's supposed to be. He's making really great decisions, and the offense is flowing with great execution.
Matt, wanted to ask you about Any. As a guy who, you know, well, you talk about loving to watch the development of guys from football players, but also into men. How has he kind of been a standard bearer of that for you throughout his career?
Well, I mean, you know, Ennie's got such a fascinating story, right? I mean, and it's probably not my job to tell the entire story right now, but what he's come from as a 17-year-old young man out of Detroit. You know, he loses his father in his life during his time in high school. And then he loses his father for the rest of his life 3 days before we leave to go play Notre Dame. And his father passes away. He's an incredible brother / father figure to his younger brother who has autism and has been a pillar of strength for him and his mother. And he's one of those guys that, yeah, he's a great player. Like, if you watch his game on Saturday, you want to talk about big-time football, and, man, the guy's playing nose half the game and dominating the game, and then he's playing the end half the game and dominating it. Decides to come back here because the betterment of himself, but I think he knew that he could only enhance himself, but he can also enhance our team from a leadership perspective. I think he's a natural-born giver, and, you know, we talk a lot in our program, man, give more of yourself than you take from the whole, and I think he's been a pillar of excellence that way. But his story may be one of the great stories that we've had since I've been here, what he is, who he is, what he stands for, what he's about. And it's really, you say, Matt, why do you love coaching college football? Man, I love coaching college football because of guys like Ennie. Because here's a guy that's changed his life, his family's life, and his future forever. And, you know, it's awesome to lead with young men like that. And really kind of the same reason you'd say, man, why do you feel like you're going to be all right, coach? Like, we got those kind of guys in the locker room. We'll be just fine. So, but, yeah, he's got an incredible story and couldn't be prouder of who he is as a human and certainly now what he's become. And I would say a dominant figure right now. In the first 2 football games, he's a completely different football player than he was even a year ago. And I think really good decision for him to come back because he's playing at a really elite level for us.
And just a quick follow-up on him. We talked about this story, and Coach Rashid talked about it when we met with him earlier. And he doesn't want to tell a story.
Yeah.
He says everyone's got a story. What does that say about him? That he's like, you know, somebody else has something they've gone through too, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't want that.
Well, I think it's the humility. You know, I think that's really what Ennie has always stood for. You know, he's quiet until poked, and once poked, you better look out. And you know, I do think that's one of the things that I have such a great appreciation for him. There's elite humility in that human being. And, you know, he would even tell you from the game standpoint, man, I got to get better, you know, meeting with our seniors on Sunday. And he's the first guy. I have to be better. We got to get the ball turned over on the defensive side of the football. We got to help the offense so they're not starting inside the 10-yard line. Like, that's the kind of guy that you're talking about. And so to me, I think just that comment alone, man, I can give you so many great examples of why that guy's so special in our football program. So, great question.
What did you see from Brees after the fumble on Saturday? I guess from my perspective, watching the press box and watching the game again on Sunday, it seemed like he was running with kind of a different purpose after that maybe happened.
Yeah, boy, I hope so. You know, I mean, man, what a critical error in the game. And, you know, I think when you're an A player, you need to be able to play football. And, you know, I think there's got to be a sense of urgency to play that way. And, you know, again, I think Brees is also a byproduct of, man, the other 10 players got to do their job when you're the running back, and there's no doubt about it. But taking care of the football is singular. That's your responsibility, especially when you're the ball carrier. And I think from that standpoint of it, he's disappointed. Nobody wants to make mistakes. Brees is a perfectionist in a lot of ways. He knows what he wants to be and what he wants to become. But I saw a sense of urgency. I saw a demeanor about him in terms of how he responded to it. And hopefully that same sense of urgency continues, not only for him, but for the entirety of our football team.
Matt, what part of the defense are you most proud of? I mean, you just spoke about any. The linebackers are playing great. Ishim and Kamani King and Eisworth, Mr. Quiet Leader, doing his thing back there. But what impresses you the most, or what are you most proud of as far as the defense is concerned?
I would say, to me, the leadership that is coming out of that group in terms of the standard of what our football team and program needs to look like. And I would hope that's where it would be too, right? You've got so many of those guys that are back. I really feel like that group has been in unison and lockstep through, fall camp on. And, fortunately for them, it's been able to be very healthy. We haven't missed a beat there. And I really think that group, in terms of even as the game was waning, people are leaving the stadium, and yet we're still in the football game, right? And, doubt is starting to creep in, that defense continued to fight and give us a chance to be in the football game all the way till the last second of the football game. And so to me, that's the characteristic. That's who we've been here. Whatever the result is, whatever the scoreboard says at the end is what it is, and that's what we got to live with, and we got to figure it out. But the how we do what we do is really the staple of what's allowed us to be successful. And that, to me, is probably the most impressive thing that I've seen through 2 football games, is their standard of, man, just play the next play. Good, bad, and different. And not to say it's been perfect, but the standard to continue to play and not look at the scoreboard till the game ends. That group's done a great job of that.
Matt, Brees hasn't had a tough stretch of running like this since 2018, his freshman year. I mean, what has to happen for him to change numbers-wise and see closer to that 100-yard mark or more?
Yeah, and I think from our end, it really goes back offensively. You look at even this past week's game, the rhythm of the game, and I know I keep hitting on this, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but man, that is paralyzing us a little bit. You talk about field position. 4 of our first 6 drives start inside our 10-yard line on last Saturday. That's tough to play really good offense. You're just trying to, get the first down and swing the field position, especially when your defense is playing good. And you almost get trapped into a different kind of football game than maybe you want to play in, especially early. And, you go back to the UNI game, and I think, even in that football game, the rhythm of the game changes early. You have a couple unique things that happen, and you put yourself in 2nd and long. So I think we have to swing the rhythm of the game holistically as a football team into our favor. And, that's playing good on special teams. That's staying ahead of the sticks on the offensive side of the football. That's execution on 3rd down. That's getting off the field on 3rd down. So I think when you just even talk about one part of it's being affected by the whole. And, our whole is off right now. And we've got to be able to have a sense of urgency of getting that fixed in every way, shape, and form right now in terms of our football team.
I was hoping you could talk, I guess, the nature of the quarterback position, because as you said, whatever happened on Saturday maybe weren't all Brock's fault, but he's still the guy that comes out of the game. Presumably that's the quickest way to change the dynamic of an offense at that position.
Well, I think he's the guy to come out of the game more for his benefit than anybody else. I think from my end of it, it's a chance to, take a step back, see what's going on, knowing that some of these things aren't in his favor. And, even the last play that happens in terms of the interception, guy's wide open. He's going to the right guy. The guy sticks his paw up, the ball gets batted right into one of their guys' hand. And so, that's, to me, it's not on Brock. That's on. We got to do a better job in protection. We got to make sure that guy's hand gets down, and that's a situation for him to be able to take a step back, take a breath, get his bearings right. And I do think in some way it really helped him. And so, I think just from our end of it, it is a mental game. It's way more than a mental game than it is a physical game. And, I think you want to do everything in your power as the head football coach, not only to protect the quarterback, but put him in the best position going forward to be successful. And sometimes that's, hey, man, things aren't going great around you right now. We're going to let you come over here, settle yourself in, and let's get through this football game, and then we'll get the things around you corrected so you can be your best and let you continue to shine. And I think that's more of my sense of it. But I do think it's more mental than it is anything else. And, nobody wants to win, and nobody's given really Iowa State football in the history of this school more of an opportunity to win, and has won more than Brock Purdy. So, I think anybody that would say anything different is foolish.
When you got here, an recruiting emphasis, I know was tight ends. I mean, you've talked about that a few times. Defensively, what did this program lack that you needed to fix ASAP?
Well, defensive line, Randy, I think when you look at that defensive front, and not to say there weren't capable bodies when we got here, but the lack of capable bodies and the lack of development there, I think, was one of the areas that was painful. And it's a challenge to play good football without a great defensive front. And, I've always been a believer that you still win football games on the offense and defensive line. And, as I'm saying that, and yet, we, in my opinion, have played really well in those areas in the first two games. We've still lacked the consistency in winning, but I still think it gives you the greatest chance to have success. That offensive line, that defensive line, and those two having the ability to serve everybody else around you. And the defensive front was priority number one for us. And, we've been fortunate. You look at some of those guys that we've been able to have play for us a lot of football. Zach Peterson, now Annie, Will McDonald, Tucker Robertson played his role and has done a really great job for us. So, we're really fortunate that we were able to kind of hit on some of those guys early. Jaquan would be in that boat as well. But, we're really, really fortunate, and it's an area that continues to be priority number one for us when we talk recruiting on the defensive side.
You find it perfect defensive lineman, and I know you use the pro formula a lot.
Yep.
Maybe not a lot, but you do.
Yeah. I think for me, and again, each position's a little bit different. I think the pass rushing defensive end is all about the twitch and the ability to win the one-on-one pass rush. The more of the six technique defensive end is length and the ability to control 1 to 2 gaps at a time. And then, the interior piece of that defensive line, it's all about strength. And it's sometimes it has to do with arm length, sometimes it has to do with takeoff, but the ability to control the middle of the field. And, I think those are things that we look for but each criteria has got its kind of own entity that's really important for us. And then, I think when you just talk in general, and that's one thing about Coach Rashid's consistency within our football program, is there is an attitude and effort standard too. And I think that's the area when I'm probably most appreciative that we haven't missed on is, there's a standard to play on the defensive line here. And there was a standard to play on the defensive line at Toledo, and there was here. And, that's, the ability to run to the football and play consistently. So I think on top of that, there's a cultural standard that we look for on that defensive front as well. So I think you tie all those things together, it's allowed us to at least try to identify those qualities and get the right guys in here.
Matt, how far off of 100% is Charlie right now? And is this maybe a game going into Big 12 play in 2 weeks that you might limit some reps for him, or is he 100% right now?
Boy, I would say, probably today he's a lot closer than he was last Tuesday. I think right now part of, our lack of rhythm would be kind of some of these tweaks and injuries that maybe we had for the last 2 weeks of camp and going into the early part of the season. And so the reality is it is all hands on deck. You got a really young and up and coming football team that you're going to go to their place and play on a marquee evening football game. You're a football team that's looking to become the best version of yourself, and you only get 12 opportunities to guarantee yourself to do it. There's got to be a sense of urgency for all of us. So, no, I would expect Charlie to only improve from where he was even on Saturday to hopefully where he is to come this coming Saturday.
Matt, what stuck out to me about the defense on Saturday is, you're turning the ball over and they're spending a lot more time on the field, right? Is that settling for you that if you have it your way, you know, you're not turning the ball over, they're spending less time on the field, and given how much time they were on the field, they still played that well?
Sure.
You know, that's got to be pretty settling for you, right?
Yeah, and I just think when you're a football player, you want to play. You know, like, man, I can tell you, being the defensive player, and being the guy in that boat, man, you just want to be on the field and you want to play, and you want to do everything in your power to help the team win the football game. And to me, that is one standard that I didn't see fade in any phase on the football game on Saturday. Was, man, our kids till the last whistle were straining to give ourselves the best opportunity to win the football game. Was it perfect? No. Was it pretty? Man, it wasn't. But, man, was the demeanor and was the leadership there? Phew, man, I would say yes. So that's what gives you hope, and certainly the defensive side of the football did some great things. I mean, their fight at the last goal line stand to keep us within striking distance in the football game, huge play. So, yeah, I would say I was really proud of those guys.
When you talk about the offense, is it safe to say that, you know, not necessarily just with Brock or Brees or whoever, sometimes it just boils down to somebody's just got to make a play?
Yeah.
Like, it just got to make a play, make something happen.
Well, I would say, Jared, globally, right? Like, it's not just on offense. Like, man, got to get the ball turned over. You know, we got to make the stop on 3rd and 14. We got to catch the ball on the punt. Like, you got to go make the play, right? And so that's where that word sense of urgency, like, man, if there's not a sense of urgency now, and obviously there wasn't Saturday, and that's why I say some of that comes on the head football coach. Why is that sense of urgency not there? Why have I not gotten that out of us? I don't know, but I haven't done a great enough job to get that done. Do I think we got great guys? Yes. Do I think our sense of urgency is there? Man, I haven't seen us make that play. And to be honest with you, and really the first 2 football games, when has that happened? You know, when have we, man, when have you seen us? I think X's big play maybe against UNI is probably the one time I saw us kind of have a sense of urgency and, like, man, go make the play. So I think that it's fitting for everybody right now within the organization of, man, there got to be a sense of urgency to make that play, to swing the tide, to get the momentum, to create that rhythm that we've played with at a really high rate. But we're certainly lacking that so far in the early part of the season.
To piggyback on that and what you said about guys being dinged up, it looked like Brees might have a play like that where he turned the corner, I think, in the first half and gets tripped up from behind. Is that a product of him being a little dinged up going into camp?
Yeah, you know, and really, I would tell you, for the first 2 weeks of camp was as talented and as best I've seen Brees Hall. And, you know, kind of midway through camp had to deal with a couple things. And so, you know, it's part of our sport and it's part of the game. So I still feel like, man, he's working himself back into, you know, where he needs to be and where you want him to be. And, you know, hopefully, again, that sense of urgency to get where he needs to be is that. But I do think all those things, I think even, you know, you flip the film on from the week before and you're talking about inches off. There's plays there to be made, and we're inches away from making them. And so, you know, what a great challenge for our football team and our program right now.
Orion and Sean's availability?
Yeah, I would tell you Sean probably would go from doubtful right now to day-to-day. I probably highly optimistic that there's a chance he plays in the football game, and I think we feel the same way right now about Orion Vance. So I think that was one of the bright spots on Sunday is, man, our injury report of where we're at and where we're going into this part of the game, we're a lot better than I thought we would be at this point of the season. So I think that's a huge positive.
Going back a little bit, how do you as a coach this week get that sense of urgency out of this team? What do you have to do?
Boy, you know, I wish I could play. You know, like I wish I was playing, but I can't. So my job is to help guide the leaders, and my job is to help, you know, make sure, you know, we continue, and I don't feel like we've missed the boat on this at all, is continue to demand the standard in terms of cultural. You know, I think it's hard. It's hard. Whether you win or you lose, it's always hard to deal with either one of those things. And I think any time that you're starting to go through the flow of the football season, the cultural residual of whatever just happened, that's a challenge. And so my job every day that I walk into this organization, whether it's our coaches, our players, or anybody that's involved, is I'm going to fight for the standard and I'm going to fight for our culture. And so I don't think that's going to be missing. I think I'm coming swinging for everything that I can in terms of what I saw Sunday, what I see Monday, and what I see today. And, you know, I don't think I'm changing very much other than, man, we're going to continue to demand it, and we're going to find the guys that are going to do it the way we expect it to be done. And you know what, if you don't have it, the nice thing about our program now is we got a lot of guys that are ready to go. And so, you know, we'll play the guys that we trust, as I've always said in our program, and that continue to, in the word, trust is a word that's used in the present tense, right? Like, it's always evolving. And, you know, I think that's something that's really big for us right now, is just continue to make sure we're doing everything that's the best interest of our culture and our program, and that's my responsibility. All right, Coach, thanks. All right, guys, thank you.